Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, the recap of Stage 9 of the Tour de France to Châteauroux. It's a sprint stage in theory from Chinon, 174 kilometers long. Not a single KOM point available to induce anybody to go in the breakaway. It's absolutely flat, but we do have wind on the border, on the precipice of what could make splits happen. About 18 k's an hour in some parts, about 20 k's an hour in other parts. Sometimes there's open areas, not continual open areas. They turn a bit. And so there was nervousness for crosswinds for most of the stage.
Yep.
And what we saw yesterday, to remind everybody, yesterday, break formation began. There was no break formation. Nobody tried to go on the breakaway. After the intermediate sprint halfway through the stage, poor Total Energies tried to go on the break. And Wanty, UAE, and Trek literally tried to stop them getting in any break. They were pegged at 1 minute and then easily brought back with 40 k's to go. Now, subsequently, Milan won the sprint. Bini was out of green jersey contention. And so we go into this stage with Milan. To me, Benji, this is the last stage Trek need to control. Full stage to finish. This is the last obvious sprint stage. There's no sprint stage in week 2. He's not making the Toulouse finish. I mean, that's break or GC, guys. And then when I look at Carcassonne, it's break, so maybe stage 17 they have to control.
Yeah.
To me, this was all on Trek to control and then get maximum green jersey points. Did you read the comments this morning? Like, where do you sit on the green jersey thing? Do you think it's a fait accompli? Do you think Pog could take it?
I think Milan's heavy favorite for it. Like, Pogacar, yes, he's got a chance to win it, but the chance is not as big as Milan. Yes, these hill stages do give more points. They give 50 points, some of the hill stages, which in a usual traditional Tour de France is not the case. So that benefits Pogacar. But the mountain stages is significantly less points than that. And you said it before, the intermediate sprint is 20 points each time and comes before the first climb in most of the mountain stages. So that is something that on paper, Little Trek can control towards that intermediate sprint for Milan to take quite a bit of points more than Pogacar, because Pogacar won't be focusing on green to get points at an intermediate sprint. So that's where he loses that opportunity to perhaps go for it in total. So I don't see Pogacar winning green unless Milan has an OTL out of the time limit or a crash or something, which we don't hope towards him, of course. But outside of that, there were some other words on social media. I think Thierry Gouvenu was commenting on the reason that we have 2 stages that are sprint stages in the weekend, which includes, well, the topography of France. But he also mentioned in a different interview that he was basically saying, I think it was to Eurosport, there was a Eurosport mic in the video. He was saying that basically these sprint teams are cutting their own branches, I think was the nice translation that was posted there. Cutting their own branches by controlling the sprint stages too harshly, not allowing a breakaway to go, which...
I agree with him.
Bruh, I'm sorry, but you can't make that statement
No.
when you make a parkour like today that has no KOM points in the entire parkour with hills in it that could easily be 3 Cat 4 climbs. I'm sorry, but there's zero incentive for a breakaway here.
Why? We're about to get into the human psychology, because that's, to me, this stage is all about human behavior and rationality and psychology. Why yesterday did they not let Verchere and Bergadeau in the break? Like,
I agree with you there.
It's so ridiculous how closely they were keeping them on a leash, and they were trying to go in. Like, there were a few teams that tried to go in the break, 3 or 4 guys, which we normally in a Tour de France sprint stage, you see 3 or 4 teams, usually 2 French Pro Contis, and then maybe a Uno X, and then I think Ineos tried to jump in yesterday. And they don't even let a break of 4 form. It's like, okay, so then he is right, the organizer, with literally no race tension, even for the lay fan who at least sees a breakaway being caught in the last 10Ks, it's a little bit of excitement.
I disagree with you. You know why I disagree with you? Outside of yesterday, there's a lot of stages where a breakaway doesn't form. And that is not because a team was over-controlling it. That is because the teams are controlling it that are trying to go for the stage win to begin with. And you can't ask the sprinting teams to control the stage a bit less, to fancy your marketing scheme of the race to have a breakaway.
Yeah.
I think it's your job as a parkour builder to make it more interesting. I looked at the parkour of today. I see 3 hills that could be KOM points in the first half. That could be a Cat 4 climb with some money for smaller teams. Yesterday's stage, it was the tiny climb, the Cat 4 at the end.
Oh, and you would have to have ridden for 140 Ks in cross headwind.
Exactly. So if that climb yesterday can be a KOM point, you can invent 4 across the parkour to make an incentive for a breakaway to form. Now, I also think that on a higher level, there are things, more incentives possible, whether it's some kind of breakaway classification to improve the chances that a breakaway forms. But I have disagreed with a lot of words of Gouverneur in the last period in this race, I would expect. But that discussion to the side, we do want to talk about.
I also think the lack of pure sprint stages means that when they do have one, they go completely overboard controlling. Like, there's no tomorrow. Today is the last sprint stage, pretty much for until stage 17, and then we go into this morning. Everyone is thinking no one will jump in the break because yesterday no one jumped in the break because there's not a single KOM point like Benji mentioned, and because the GC teams are going to start riding halfway through the stage because of the cross tailwind threat. And
because a lot of the sprint teams are still in the mindset that I've pointed at numerous times, and I've had this rant so many times that every single podcaster, podcast viewer and listener could repeat the rant at this point. The fact that a tier 2-3 sprinter, those teams, a lot of them focus on just getting their sprinter to the line to try to sprint for a top 10 position against Milan and Merlier, except for hedging their bets by also going in the breakaway next to that. That would improve your chances because your breakaway rider would hurt the chasing teams behind in the peloton, which is going to be the teams of the most favored riders for the final sprint. So if Tudor goes into the breakaway with, just inventing a name right now, Alaphilippe, for example, to put pressure on the peloton, in doing so, Little Trek will have to do more work to control in the peloton. And I think in today's stage, we saw the perfect example for that. But what else were you going to enter into there?
Once you've given up on green, and they just saw Binny get spanked, and so they've completely have switched from overly controlling to not controlling at all.
Yeah.
Quickstep are here with split GC ambitions, so they're not going to control. And so everyone's looking at Trek, and everyone thinks Trek are going to keep this on a tight leash, and then so this is how it begins. The breakaway formation starts. Van der Poel rolls off the front with Ricard in a Trofeo Baraki. And initially, Trek don't react. And so their thinking is, okay, this is not going anywhere. It's Van der Poel playing silly games. Sometimes he and Pog do this. It's not going anywhere. Then he gets to 30 seconds, still blocked. Trek don't start pacing. Gets to 1 minute, nothing. Gets to 2 minutes, and then I'm starting to get angry. Because I'm like, you guys, you collectively sprinters teams, didn't let fucking Mathieu Vercher get 1 minute plus into a cross headwind, and you've given Van der Poel 2 minutes for free, by the way.
Yeah.
They're not pushing. And so I've made up a new epithet.
A what?
A second taken for free is 3 times as hard to bring back in the final.
That's true.
And so Van der Poel hasn't had to work for this time gap. And then it goes to 2:30. They start to pace with Thibaut Naes, who I didn't know was here. I didn't know he was in this race. And Julien Bernard doesn't know why he's in this race, because Julien Bernard should be in this race. And then Trek are looking, and they are thinking, okay, Van der Poel will stop at the intermediate. Why would Van der Poel do this for the intermediate? He hasn't gone for any green jersey points the last 2 days.
He doesn't care about the green jersey at all. He stated it before the stage started, but he also showed it when it comes to his behavior, which is more valuable than his words before the stage. So it's clear that, especially with a gap of 2 minutes, which was given for free, that they might have incentive to keep going. And a lot of incentive, especially because I didn't believe in green jersey hopes of Van der Poel. You neither. Most people that saw the last couple of stages saw that in the behavior of Mathieu van der Poel. But Jonas Ricard and Mathieu van der Poel, you mentioned Trofeo Baraki. For the people that don't know, that term comes from a race in the 1940s, I think, that turned into a duo time trial of 2 riders. So that's why we call an attack of 2 teammates a Trofeo Baraki. So that's a bit of a definition explanation there for you. But that was the breakaway formation of the day. And I gotta say, Patrick, I was thinking, is all of this part of the Roodhof network?
And that's true. Like the Rudolph network has somehow made the entire peloton collectively lose their minds because Trek, who by the way, and you know how I went on my little rant about how Milan should walk green?
Yeah.
He should walk green. He should, but you have to control the intermediate today, which by the way is in the first half an hour. So yesterday, less than half an hour.
Yeah.
So Trek and Intermarché controlled it yesterday to get maximum points. Then you let a French breakaway go, and then you mildly control, and or you get 20 points at the intermediate. Trek have then got a control of this stage, Benji. 80 Ks. They have to control 80 kilometers because they don't have to control the final of this stage because all the GC teams will start pushing because of the crosswind nervousness. And they got Quinn Simmons, and they don't want to do that. They do not want to do that because that's letting the other sprinters teams eat their plates. And you know what? It doesn't matter. You have the guy who just won yesterday. You must take maximum points. If Milan takes the 70 points or even comes second in the final sprint, you will... And also it makes it easier for your lead out if you never let the gap out. Instead, what they say to Thibaut Naesen is pace slowly. And then we'll wait for another team to come help. And no team helps.
Exactly. But we've mentioned a lot about Lil Trek now. There's another team and another top sprinter, arguably the fastest sprinter in the world, that we have not mentioned yet. Tim Merlier has this massive benefit for some reason that he's part of a GC team. He's got just Bert van Leijbergen and then riders technically in support of Remco Evenepoel. And because of that dynamic, it's like no one of the other sprint teams looks at Merlier and Quickstep to take control of sprint stages, because at the end of the day, I actually don't expect them to really do it unless it's absolutely necessary. So I think it's a logical decision that you can't wait on them to do it. But I do think it's an interesting dynamic in this peloton. But
well, they're wanting to keep the horses to help Remco in the crosswinds later, and that's why. And Van der Poel said this afterwards. They were thinking most like they get to the intermediate, they continue because they have such a gap. The gap goes to like 5 minutes 50, and then Van der Poel's thinking, okay, it's going to split. They think there'll be echelons. At least we'll then get caught by the front echelon, which happened in Jebel Hafid this year. The break got caught by the front echelon, and I also think, Benji, like, if you're Jayco, if you're a team whose bluff is eventually going to get called,
yeah,
it's like what I said earlier. It's harder to take the time back in the final, and you're going to end up burning your lead out in the final. It's a lot easier when Thibaut Naesen is pacing at 200 watts to pace with Elmar Reinders and keep it at 1 minute, and then you keep your whole lead out, or Schmidt.
Disagree. I agree with you in some sense, but in my opinion, they should have had a rider in the break instead of being in the peloton.
Yeah, of course. And that's the funny thing, that the way your rant is vindicated the other day.
Hey.
And wind direction does matter. Cross tailwind today makes it harder to chase. But the team that won the opening sprint stage and had the green jersey favorite, the team that's won multiple stages this Tour de France so far, who does have a legitimate top 3 sprint option, who came third yesterday, they're the team going in the breakaway.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of directors, maybe it is, and they're, why aren't they in the break?
Well, I think it's because they are still in that traditional backwards mindset of, okay,
We'll see what happens.
we've got 0.05% to win with our sprinter from the peloton, but we're also focused on UCI points, which increases their desire to focus on their sprinter. But what they don't necessarily think of is that sending a rider in the breakaway, even if that breakaway fails, helps you limit the lead out of the top sprinter in the peloton. We've said it before. I don't think that mindset has been brought into the peloton as much as it should be, because even on flat sprint stages like today, stuff is possible. And yes, it required a mistake in breakaway control, perhaps, in letting the gap go out so much towards an Alpecin to work. But today was a perfect example, and we see that group happening. We see, like you said, Van der Poel taking 20 points at the intermediate sprint. I think Milan took the leftovers in the peloton ahead of maybe Piniam or something. Merlier also sprinted with them. But it wasn't a crazy sprint. Nonetheless, the gap from Alpecin grows to 5 minutes and 30 seconds. And also, by the way, once this bluffing is happening from the other teams, once Little Trek is also bluffing, stuff like that, when the tempo is not really going, and eventually Little Trek starts controlling, I am okay with the other teams waiting longer. Actually,
What Trek doing? Like, they're the favorite of the green jersey. You can't. Who are you bluffing?
The ideal race, if you're Little Trek, is, like you mentioned, first portion towards the intermediate sprint. You try to control without breakaway. Then you try and take the max points at the intermediate sprint, because on paper you are the top sprinter that cares the most about the intermediate sprint. Merlier won't go all out, so you should be able to beat him there. And Milan is better than Binion. So that's something, that's the first spot. After that, you switch into Sylvain Dillier mode, right?
Yeah, like
if a breakaway forms,
Quinn Simmons can control this, like keep this break at a reasonable time. The problem is, like I said, you let it out so big without Van der Poel or Ricard having to really like invest that much yet. And for the green jersey battle, like Milan after this stage could have gone like 80, 90 points ahead of Pogačar, and let's say he goes 70 points ahead of him.
Yeah.
Then there's 12 intermediate sprints left, Benji, giving 120 points maximum. Let's say he takes 60 points. That's then 130 points. Pogačar then has to win, I think, five mountain stages and one.
A lot.
Pogačar has to like win every stage. That's with Milan having like choking all the intermediate sprints.
Milan's got green unless he crashes or RTLs.
And like at the intermediates as well coming up, no one's going to be sprinting him anymore because he's got it sewn up. So yeah, I found it very, very strange. It was like, yeah, the Rudolph network just made them. And
who's in the Rudolph network? Because like we look at the team of Alpecin, X-Riders, are they in there? Which other teams are in part of the Rudolph network? How do you describe the definition of the Rudolph network? You said mind control across the peloton. I need some intel here, bro. Urban Dictionary is waiting.
Christoph Rudolph leads it.
Okay.
And then Jonas Ricard is the lieutenant.
Okay.
With Gianni Vermeersch. And then, yeah, they play out Van der Poel. It's what, like, when you see...
where are the Urukai in the list?
Yeah, when you see Gil Helders and... when you see some miscellaneous Belgian rouleurs cooperating with Van der Poel in a classic before a 1K 8%
Wout van
climb.
Aert.
Yeah, for example. Oh, no, he actually doesn't cooperate. He's not on the network. Mads Pedersen, for example.
Miscellaneous Belgian rouleur.
And then Van der Poel drops them. They're like, okay, that's it operating. Tim Merlier's not on the network because he won. They made him lose 3 Tour de France stages in 2021, leading out Philipsen, who was very, very slow. Pogačar is in the network.
Okay.
Yeah. He is like a captain of the network. So
are you saying that it also benefits Pogačar, the Rudolph network?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean? It's Van der Poel, and yeah, that's like...
It sounds like a next level conspiracy theory, buddy.
Okay, but then you explain to me the race situation today. How many people listening opened up their PCS live stats today, opened it and said, what the fuck? And I have the explanation for you. That's the only one I can come up with. Whether you choose to believe it or not, or whether I'm joking or not, that's up to you.
5 minutes 30. That is the gap. That's the gap that stays because we do see Little Trek controlling, and we hear in a bit of an audio message on the screen by the team of Little Trek, Quinn Simmons into the radio saying, I'm looking for friends at the moment, but it's not working, which was a bit of a fun meme. You could meme that in many ways. That was me in year 10 at school looking for friends, but didn't work. Nonetheless, Little Trek eventually tries something different with about 55 kilometers to go, and I actually didn't like it. With 55 kilometers to go, Little Trek starts pulling an echelon, and the group starts breaking in some parts, but it wasn't like... It didn't start splitting like crazy, but there were some gaps forming. I think it was a split of 2 pelotons, basically. And the 2 people that are important that missed out were Oscar Ronley for GC and Wout van Aert for a potential sprint of his Malisa bike. And we do see Wout van Aert bridging solo to the front, and this all drops the gap towards the front by 45 seconds, from like 4:15 to 3 minutes and a half, roughly, or something. So that echelon move does lower the gap towards the front of the race, but in doing so, it hurts not only Little Trek to chase in the peloton, but also all the other teams to chase in the peloton. And when they stop pacing, when they stop pulling that echelon, the gap towards the breakaway extends by 45 seconds again. So we're back to where we started with more tired riders. And
it was crazy.
Then Little Trek takes control again, and then eventually they make their best move of the day for me. They, with about, if I had to guess, 45-ish kilometers, they stop pulling. And 2 minutes later, all the other sprint teams of Tier 2 and Tier 3 sprinters, they blink. Which teams did we see?
Tudor, for Dainese, Jaco for Groenewegen. Bear in mind also Dunbar's crashed out, O'Connor's out of GC, Arkea for Demar, Israel Premier Tech. I actually think Israel Premier Tech, it's like, I understand it. I mean, Stewart won. Actually, no, I no longer understand it because they're still leading out Ackerman, even though Stewart is quicker and Stewart beat Milan head-to-head in a Dauphiné sprint after a hard day, but nonetheless.
And they should have been in the break.
And they should have been in the breakaway with Neylands, of course, but I understand them pulling, even though the final part, maybe not. And so Schachmann had also been pulling, so Quickstep had put one rider, and still a lot of the teams were just nervous about these echelons, and Little Trek probably contributed to that. And then it stops again, but the gap when these teams start pulling really comes down, Benji. Like it comes down to 2:30 quickly, 2 minutes. And the problem is, it's like in rolling hilly terrain, cross tailwind, which we have here. So let's go like the last 40 Ks. That operates in quite a similar fashion to like a sprint stage with hard climbs.
Okay.
In that if you don't catch a strong breakaway before or on a hard climb, and then you have a flat section afterwards or a descent, your domestiques are fucked. There's less control in the peloton, and people are just sort of looking to position, and that's what happens with crosswinds. And we get to 37 Ks to go. They turn right. Teams are in position. Pogacar's there with Wellens. Niels Pollard, I think, fakes a mechanical because it's about the time to do some rouleur work. And then...
That's harsh. He's been good this week. Come on.
Pollard?
Yeah.
At what?
At controlling the breakaway.
Yeah, sure. Doing some rouleur work in crosswinds though, he's like, I'm out. Actually, to be fair to him, I think he was looking at his chain ring before the stage.
Yeah, but if you do that before the stage and you have an issue in the middle of the stage, then the what do you call that again? When you're like suspicious? No.
The Jakobsen.
No, when you have like the card shit, the tarot card shit. What do you call it? Superstitious. Then you get really superstitious about your bike next time.
No, that's like every time you're cooked and you're climbing, you're like, I got a rear flat. That's what I'm like, I think I got a rear flat. I can't be going this slowly. No one goes. Although the nervousness in the drag race brings it down to 145 with 35 Ks left. 30 Ks to go. Going through a village. It narrowed. Pogacar still in good position. Visma tried to pull an echelon.
Why specifically in that village? Why does that village make it a good idea to pull an echelon? We've discussed this in the past on the podcast, but it's a Tour de France, so might have a few new viewers. Is that, well, I know what it is, so I shouldn't be asking you. Like, it's because throughout a village, a team that pulls it in that village, the peloton, will stretch out the peloton into a line, and then after that village, you come into an open section, which then basically allows you to have the crosswind kick in action and makes it easier to split because you don't have a bubble coming out of the village. You've got an entire line of riders, right?
Exactly. It puts it in a single line, and then you come out of it, and then you can just go with its single file. And then if one rider drops the wheel somewhere, and then it makes, because like if it's wide already and one rider drops the wheel, then it just immediately gets filled. If it's already single file, it only takes one, and you have to keep pushing out of the village, obviously. The wind didn't look crosswindy enough. Maybe not strong enough. It does split, but not like normally in the Middle East, for example.
Yeah.
If you turn, and you're in the Visma position, and a Van Aert and an Affini and a Campenaerts push, you'll just see an immediate split in like P20.
Yeah.
And you'll see splits everywhere, and it'll break into echelons. If you want to look at the footage, look at the Almirfa stage in 2021. The stage also... Did Van der Poel win it? Can't remember. Anyway,
I think so, because David Dekker was sprinting to a podium for Visma.
The Almirfa desert stage always, like when it's proper crosswinds, just splits everywhere. That wasn't happening. It was like maybe a small climber drops the wheel, but then someone was kind of closing it. Normally, if someone drops the wheel, it's gone. And Wellens and Pogacar, as I said, perfect. Van Aert and Bert van Leeuwenberger get dropped. They come back and it stops. It's down to 30 seconds, Benji, with like 30 Ks to go. And this is again where...
The Roodhoff network kicks in?
No, this is just where it's a tension between they don't want to control because they don't want to burn riders because they know that we have a right-hand turn at 16 Ks to go where it can split again. But like... I just... Trek started blocking, and I just didn't understand. I was like, just ride with Simmons. You're going to have to ride with him anyway, and you're now giving the time back for free. And Van der Poel, they literally got 40 seconds back for free.
It's true. It felt like Little Trek was still bluffing a little bit in that phase as well, because they were like, can we save a rider for the lead out? But on the other hand, maybe they just didn't have the legs anymore. Because I was looking at Consoni during that echelon phase. He pulled out of like 6th position, and the man looked completely done for. But there were some moments in that echelon phase where I feel like there were moments where it could have split. Because there suddenly was like a 4-rider group off the front of the peloton with Remco Evenepoel in 4th position. Would have been a bit of a crazy move if he kept pulling there, but it would have been fun to see, if I have to be honest.
Oh, we should also say, Almeida abandoned.
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh,
well, we can do that afterwards, that whole discussion, maybe what the consequences are, but you're right. We skipped through that a little bit. Nonetheless, I want to give credits to the person in the team car of Alpecin de Koning as well. Johnny Meersman, I always want to say Johnny Vermeers, but that is the rider on the team. Johnny Meersman is a cyclist. I think he rode for Quickstep back in the day, where he won a couple stages in the Vuelta, maybe. If I had to guess what year it was, I would go with 2014-15. Maybe the year before Jempi Drucker won a couple stages. That's a pure guess, so I hope chat and comment section corrects me on that. Nonetheless, that guy in the car has the experience necessary to make these moments more better for the breakaway of Mathieu van der Poel and Ricard. Because, hypothetically, we're in the tailwind section right now. Wind is behind us. We are the breakaway, Patrick. You're Ricard. I'm Mathieu van der Poel, because I've won the monuments here.
I'd love to be Jonas Ricard. Oh.
Why?
Just like leading out Philipsen, just doing rouleur stuff, doing
part of the Roodhof network.
Yeah, I'd love to be part of that network. The Dodd one, Belgian Classics, I love it.
Okay, anyway, back to the story at hand.
I have a funny story. I remember I watched I was so degenerate. I watched a track points race of Jonas Ricard in South Africa in 2017. He went there for some off-season training and he didn't win. And he went to South Africa. It might have been near Stellenbosch. Maybe it's 2016, 17. And he raced and he got rolled. Everyone teamed up against him for 40 minutes. Pretty entertaining.
I am super happy for you. Anyway, we too are right now riding an Alpecin kit in a tailwind section. Wind is behind us, peloton is 30 seconds behind us. We turn right, which means that the wind suddenly comes from the right of us. Our team car, smart man Johnny Meersman, says, okay, I'm going to probably needs to ask the UCI to come forward, or does he just come forward by himself?
You can just come forward.
Oh, he just comes forward by himself with the car on the right side, and he moves up on the right of us, which means that we are now sheltered from the wind by the Alpecin de Koning car, and he did that every 5 minutes.
So yeah, when they turned right 16 k's to go, it's no longer cross tail from their left, it's proper cross from their right as they go south towards Chateau Rouge. And yeah, genius stuff. He did it straight after the corner. Wellens went to take a bid on before that corner and then realized, oh, fuck. And in the peloton, I think X started to drill it with Johannesson. Varnskold had crashed earlier in the stage, so he was out, but they still have Stian Fredheim, who is quite a good sprinter after a hard day and good in sort of crosswinds or technical terrain. And Wellens is out because of that, and Pogacar is now isolated pretty much from this point onwards, but they're on a bigger D road. It's not a cross tailwind. It's like an 18-kilometer-hour crosswind from their right. But it's hectic, Benji, because all the sprinters teams now, they've got to close a minute on Van der Poel. Ricard's gone. He drops Van der Poel off at like 9Ks to go or 10Ks to go.
Yeah.
All the sprinters teams come up. They got maybe like 2 or 3 guys to help the sprinter, and no one wants to help at the same time. No one wants to help in a friendly fashion. So a Bahrain will come to the front in a group of 4 or 3.
Yes.
And they'll put it in the gutter and they'll drill it for 30 seconds.
Max was like 10 seconds.
Yeah, maybe less. And then it'll be like stretched at the back, not splitting. And then another team, Trek, come to the front. Visma at the front with Affini and Vingegaard. Trek start drilling. And Alpecin, who's blocking, he's got Milan behind him. The stringer's like, I'll just drop this wheel. He's thinking about dropping the wheel, but then Visma don't relay. Stops. Gap is still at like 50 seconds. And that happens over and over. Groupama, Tudor, Jayco. No like coordinated chase, which is hard in a crosswind. But then eventually they get into 5Ks to go, Benji, and we see proper Groupama with 3 with Askey starting to chase. Van der Poel has 30 seconds with 5Ks to go. The sprint teams the GC teams have disappeared from the front, and he starts to really disintegrate under the pressure from behind.
Also, because some of these last corners, we have a corner going onto a false start uphill. It felt like that a lot in this last final. So we looked at the peloton, and every single time that I thought it's falling still, the next team came forward, just like you just described it, and started hammering it a little bit. And therefore, there was actually some kind of uncooperative relay going on in the peloton, and Van der Poel, he was struggling. Ricard did a fantastic job, by the way, this entire race. Absolutely super strong by both Ricard and Mathieu van der Poel, but now it was on Mathieu van der Poel to finish it off, and I gotta say, I was begging for a Mathieu van der Poel victory at this point, because they deserved it after that effort. But slowly but surely, the gap was going down. We see it melting. About 6 seconds per kilometer is what it felt like at a certain point.
It was doing that, and then it started to accelerate.
In the last 3.5 kilometers, it started going up and going up the amount of time that they lost towards the peloton, where Mathieu van der Poel went to 20 seconds, 17 seconds, 15 seconds, and we could see Mathieu van der Poel on a false set uphill with the peloton behind him, and still, there were moments at this point with 1.7 kilometers to go where the peloton looked like, okay, cooperation is gone. But then the next team came forward to try again, but it did feel like some teams were maybe saving a rider for a lead out.
Yeah, that's usually the case, and then they sort of had to chase. I think what really hurt Van der Poel here is it didn't properly split, and there was too much firepower behind. The peloton was too big. I think if you get a proper echelon of 30, then the odds are there's not going to be 7 sprint teams there, each with 2 guys to pull full. It's going to be comprised of 15 GC riders in their teams.
But they will cooperate better.
Would Visma have just kept riding in the last 7Ks if Pogacar's still there?
That depends on who's there, you know?
Exactly. Like, I think
in a small echelon of 15, 20 riders, you have no choice but to relay anyway.
Yeah, you're right. I think Van der Poel probably hoped actually there was real echelon action at 30Ks to go, and he got caught by a small group of 10 or 12. That also could have happened today. It doesn't. He gets caught in the last kilometer after a valiant effort. Would have been a historic stage win on a day where no one thought the break had any chance. And he's caught. The sprint teams now are devoid of any lead-outs except for, as I said, Israel Premier Tech. They go to the front. They're starting to go to the front. Again, it's Stewart trying to lead out Ackerman, which is an exercise in futility. Although he does place consistently, but winning seems not realistic. And Danny Van Poppel launches early. He says, well, I don't have Meus here, or maybe Meus was deeper. I may as well lead out Johnny Milan and Merlier. We see Merlier snake his way into 4th position. It's not actually looking good for Merlier because he's going to have to go the long way around, and Danny Van Poppel does it like a lead-out man. He pulls off barrier, opens barrier. Milan's got the quickest right-hand way. I was like, oh, Merlier's going to have to go the long way around the Israel lead-out right now. He does. And Merlier straight up destroys Milan. I mean, hard day in the crosswinds. And Merlier, it was not as close as the first sprint head-to-head they did. He had to go the long way. Maybe Milan had to eat more wind, but without both having a lead out, I would say this is a pretty equal sprint. Yeah, Merlier wins comfortably. So 3 stage wins for Quickstep, Benji. Just the 1 error is on stage 1. I mean, Merlier might have Merlier's on stage 1. If they hadn't fucked up the crosswinds, he'd probably be in green.
No, the funny part is, last year he didn't ride a single Grand Tour, right?
No.
Did Merlier get sent to the Vuelta?
He did the Giro. He won 3 stages.
He rode the Giro, you're right. Didn't ride the Tour. Correction. We don't talk about the Giro here. Anyway, you're right. But they didn't send him to the Tour, etc., which is now his first Tour de France in a couple of years since Alpecin, pretty much, right? So
it's his second
that was
tour.
The Remco effect of the team of Quickstep, and I think it's a fantastic confirmation that Merlier should have been at this Tour de France, and now he's won two stages. Obviously, he has no chance for green, but that doesn't matter. They've got a pretty optimal Grand Tour so far. But Remco's in a position where maybe he wanted to be a little bit closer to the yellow jersey by now. Yes, that's due to that first day echelons, and yes, Merlier lost a chance there, but you're always going to have a few mistakes in a Grand Tour. So that's relatively minimal in the grand scheme of things, and 3 Grand Tour victories already is a great Grand Tour for Soudal Quickstep so far. But I want to bring it away from the from that for a second, I also want to mention, did we go through the top 10 so far? Because Merlier won the stage, Milan got second, a third place for Arnaud de Lee.
Yeah, he looked
That
good.
is
He looked good.
really impressive in my opinion, because he's had trouble for the last couple of months, for the last year and a half, to be honest. Ever since Omloop last year, he has never really been his true self anymore, except for the Belgian championships then at a certain point. But now getting third at this stage, it feels like he's slowly but surely maybe finding the confidence again, and hopefully we can find the old Arnaud de Lee back as fast as possible, because that is a rider that is truly impressive at his best. Fourth place, Pavel Bittner, also impressive actually. Paul Peno at fifth, Binyam Girmay in sixth place, so a bit disappointing for the man. Phil Bauhaus in seventh, Jordi Meus in eighth. Stian Fredheim, who had a mechanical, I'm pretty sure, in the final.
He did.
Got back behind the team car, got back into the peloton, sprinted to ninth place, so really impressive. Søren Weidenskjold crashed throughout the stage, so that's why they went for Fredheim as well, or maybe they were planning to do that anyway.
Fredheim's good.
Caden Groves getting 10th place. Like,
That's why they went in the break.
yes, but on the other hand, he probably still hoped for a little bit more. But he's got no lead out here, because the lead out was in the breakaway.
Exactly.
So I think that's a super impressive win by Merlier and so forth. But then we look at the teams that took control as well throughout the stage, and I see Tudor Pro Cycling with Dainese in 16th place, Dylan Groenewegen for Jayco in 15th place. There's a lot of teams that helped throughout the stage that are nowhere at the finish line. Arkea with Demar in 13th place, his best result so far in this Grand Tour. So I'd argue that helping pacing might have helped his chances.
I mean, Astana as well, they brought a leader with no sprinter, so they missed Canter here for the points, but they probably needed another sprinter.
I think the lesson for these teams, the Tudors, the Arkeas, the Jaycos of the world, is go in the breakaway at the start, and once the situation was formed in the middle of the stage, it's normal that they started cooperating to try and catch the breakaway.
Yeah, I honestly can't predict it, because I can also understand why Jayco didn't tell Mara Schmidt to go on the breakaway today, because yesterday those two sprint teams were covering everything. Even UAE weren't letting Total go in. But then if you don't try, I can understand why they do that, but also that's a defeatist way of looking at cycling. And I think, there'd probably be some eyebrows raised at Visma again, Benji. Visma, why are they investing so much energy and getting nothing out of it? But if you don't try, you never know.
That's the thing, yes, there were maybe a few moments where I thought throughout the stage, okay, this might not be the perfect section to keep going now, which after they ended up stopping their echelon attempts. But their goal is not to catch Mathieu van der Poel, is not to put any sprinters in trouble. They look at Tadej Pogacar. Is he a bit out of position? Let's try and push it on this echelon segment. Let's try and push it anyway to see what happens as a consequence. Were no consequences. Yes, they're spending a lot of energy, and I think they've had quite a few criticism for that in the last week. But at the end of the day, it's quite simple. If Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar go towards the mountains, Pogacar on paper drops Jonas Vingegaard. So Visma needs to try everything they can in any stage, continuously, all the time, to try and subvert a different situation. Because if there's one moment where Pogacar forgets to lead, or makes a mistake, or his team doesn't position him well, then Visma might be able to benefit. But if they don't try, in my opinion, Jonas loses anyway.
But yeah, Pogacar, I think, has almost no teammate in Group 1 for the last 15Ks. I think Narvaez might have been there, not sure. If he does have a problem, and he's having to position himself, listen, Pogacar hasn't missed a crosswind split since he had a mechanical before the ones in 2020. Yeah. So you can't just expect it the most obvious. There was also today, there's 3 obvious corners where it's going to happen. It's not like a day where it's a really strong wind and you can make it happen anywhere. But yeah, you don't expect to actually put Pogacar on a gap.
Talking about team strength of UAE, Joao Almeida crashed a couple days ago in Muur Britannia stage, struggled through yesterday's stage, struggled at the start of this stage because he dropped quite early in today's stage, and today's difficulty of the stage made it a lot harder for him, but also it looked like he couldn't hold a steer with one of his handlebars with one of his hands, and spoilers, it's pretty important as a bike rider to be able to hold your handlebars properly.
I reckon it was his breathing.
It could be one of the two. Rib can inflict poor breathing, hand can also be an actual such an egg that you want to stop riding your bike.
When they were on bad road surface, you see he took his left hand like off the bars and would just like keep contact with like a thumb or one finger because he couldn't, if he actually fully gripped, the vibrations were obviously causing him a lot of pain. I mean, credits to Almeida for trying to continue. Yesterday they rode around.
Did he have? It's always a difficult question. We're not internally in the team. We don't know what his exact injuries are.
You have no idea what his exact injuries or pain is. So it's
but I feel like I've seen a couple riders jump back on the bike way too quickly after a crash in the last 2 days, and especially Intermarché riders, Zimmerman and Rouge yesterday. So
I think the Rouge one to me is much worse than like Almeida being assessed the night before, having a conversation about it, deciding we're going to try to continue and get through. To me, that's not as bad as when a guy looked to us to be knocked out and he's just like back on the bike. So
Zimmerman today also looked fucked and was.
I think Zimmerman was just skin off, but
possibly.
Also, you know, on the concussion test, Benji, I did a you know, I was watching the Mets game last night, and Salvador Perez of the Kansas City Royals foul tipped the ball straight into the umpire's grill and hit at the top of the grill.
Yeah.
And the concussion assessment was completely different to the doctors here.
Yeah.
The doctors here are still doing the like one finger. Can you see how many fingers am I holding up? The one that,
and you should be able to do it without turning your head. Is a test, right?
I don't know. I'm not.
While Zimmerman was doing his test, he was like moving his head left and right.
But the one, they stopped the game for like a full 5-6 minutes. They didn't do that. They're asking him questions. They did a completely different style of assessment. So,
but is that the downside of the sport of pro cycling? Because at the end of the day, should it be that in the concussion protocol, it is possible that a rider can OTL but still be in the race?
That's a good. That would remove it significantly.
But GC riders would still be doomed with it.
Yeah.
But someone like Jonas Rouge yesterday,
but if
could stand by the roadside for 20 minutes for all I care.
But if you crash so badly that you need a concussion assessment, then your GC's fucked anyway.
That is true. I agree with that.
Normally.
On paper.
Like Almeida, he crashed, his GC done. Like he knew it. Everyone, like he was like.
Yeah, but Jonas Vingegaard at Paris-Nice then, for example.
Oh yeah, good point. Exactly. That's a good point.
He had I think a little bit of an injury on his like wenkbrauw. What do you call this in English? Eyebrow. Sorry.
Wait, in English, Dutch it's winkbrauw?
Wenkbrauw.
What's wen mean?
I have no clue.
Yeah, you used to call it winkbrauw because you wink with it. That's crazy.
I really doubt that. But
Dutch is just stolen. Dutch is just drunk English. Evidence number 150.
But on serious note, that specific moment, it felt like Vingegaard was back on the bike. Jonas Vingegaard spoke out about it in the media as well, that his test was not okay during that stuff, that he was back on the bike. His teammates were saying after the stage that he looked a bit, not dizzy, but there was another word that they used for it.
Yeah, not himself.
Yeah, not himself, stuff like that. At the end of the day, that is the perfect example of a moment that I don't know how to fix in this sport. Because the solution should be that Jonas Vingegaard gets properly checked there. And if he's okay, then he lost so much time because of that check that he's out of GC. If he's not okay, he's out of the race. But how do we fix that? Should a rider that has a concussion test be allowed to drive behind the car to come back?
Yeah, isn't that the answer? Like,
Ghana didn't get it at the Tour de France.
Like when
UCI Commissaire was like, no.
Like when Zimmerman was getting medical treatment today, the car should at least keep him. I don't know. It's hard. I don't.
Should he be able to draft back to the front behind a medical car?
Yeah, exactly. I have to think about it during the off season.
There has to be a better solution than now.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it more clearly. But yeah, what do you think? Almeida out. What do you think that means for UAE in the race?
Well, it's a big hit for the team.
Yeah.
Like Pogacar himself, he's won a Tour de France by himself in 2020. Basically, he had De La Cruz there, but that was about it. In this year, team strength is more important in the last couple of years at the Tour de France, especially because the super teams are even more powerful as a whole, in my opinion, and because they don't make the mistake of his Malisa bike in 2020 either, Jumbo-Visma back then. Now, if I look at Almeida dropping out, that was the best climber for UAE Team Emirates based on the last week and based on the last couple of months in cycling. Yeah. And then I look at Adam Yates and I don't see that replacement yet. Maybe he grows into the race and we see him in the mountains at a high level, which...
No, but
It's possible, but you can't replace Almeida.
Even if Adam Yates is at his top level, he's not going to be as good as what Almeida could have been.
Yeah, but the benefit is Pogačar just needs to follow.
He does.
Technically.
He does just need to follow. I think Almeida, though, when you're thinking about every time on the mountains there's a group of 6, Almeida in theory should always be in there. Even a group of 5, group of 4. Like Almeida was going to be the 3rd best pure climber in this race, maybe alongside Remco.
Could have podium, perhaps.
Well, no, I think he was. Like he, Jorgensen, and Remco were going to be having a big battle for podium, and so
I didn't see Jorgensen for that yet because I need to see that in the high mountains first.
Yeah, and Almeida being out, I think that paves the way for Jorgensen a bit more because then Pogačar, as you said, he doesn't have the dual mountain lead out of Yates and Almeida. And then maybe the overall climbs become less difficult. I don't know, but definitely it's a big loss for UAE. As Benji said, I think Yates looks quite good. Sivakov and Pollitt will be a lot better in the mountains. Soler will be good. And then Wellens and Narvaez, we saw in the Dauphiné, were climbing very, very well. Except on the high mountains. Yeah, on the high mountain stage. So on the Combloux stage, they were good, 15-min climb, but then and then they did a 2-min lead out. On the Valmenier stage, it was more Sivakov, actually, from memory.
I'm curious about a stage like tomorrow. Because a stage like tomorrow, I'm talking about a medium mountain festival. We've got a stage of 165 kilometers from Eneza to Le Mont d'Or Puy de Sancy. And if you look at the parcours, there are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categorized climbs. There's a few uncategorized ones in there as well. So they're not 5 minutes climbs, these. They're more leaning towards, would you say, 5 to 15-minute climbs?
Yeah, some of them are shorter, but yeah, I think maybe 10 mins.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Yeah, 10, 12 mins.
At the start of the stage, in break formation, steep climb already in it. The parcours says 4.2 kilometers at 6%. There's steep proportions in that climb. So breakaway formation is going to be a massive part of the stage. And that's where team strength, the discussion we just had about UAE, will come in quite a lot. Because when I saw this parcours for the first time during the Tour de France team race presentation, then I thought to myself, this could be a breakaway race stage. This is the kind of stage where a large breakaway can form at the start, where a Ben O'Connor will jump in, stuff like that. That's the stuff we expect on a stage like this. And then there is an option for a secondary GC rider, Lipovic special kind of, to try and slip into the breakaway and try and take time in a large breakaway that is hard to be controlled by UAE Team Emirates. And then it depends on who will decide to help, who will blink throughout the stage to perhaps help UAE catch that breakaway because their spot in GC starts to get in danger. So I see a lot possible on this stage. There's a few GC riders that I'd love to see try something here. Like a Remco, I would even like to see slip in a breakaway just once to see what happens when it comes to Visma reacting and UAE reacting, how they look at each other. I think UAE will try to control him. I think Visma will try and put the pressure on UAE. That's my expectation for this. And I don't know, then I would love to see that. But on the other hand, there's also a possibility that if Remco does that Movistar starts pacing or something. Just hypothetically, just naming a random team.
It's true, though. There's always the Tour de France, you know? What if Warren Barguil is there for only? Like,
oh, I was like...
always some team will pace to protect their GC position. Although Remco's second in GC, so actually he's not immediately threatening anybody except maybe Vingegaard. Vingegaard's second place. So I think this first 2 hours, it's going to be a lot of riders, and I think maybe why they were trying to conserve Simmons today was because they want Simmons to go on the break tomorrow at Little Trek, and there's a lot of riders: Maro, Schmidt, Ben O'Connor, Romeo, Simmons. I'm going to go through the full start list. Warren Barguil himself, Ben Healy, of course, Alex Baudin, Stora, Santi Buitrago, half of I would say Louis Barret, but I don't know if he's crashed. All of Ineos, like pretty much. Yep. Geraint Thomas, Aronsman. Go through some more.
Like there's a
Costu, Alaphilippe.
Half the peloton.
Yeah, literally half the peloton's going to try to get in the breakaway. Yeah, Buchmann. You may laugh, but Buchmann's actually in good shape. Woods will be circling the stage with Blackmore and Neylands. The Johannesson brother, I think Tobias should just go in because they can't tell difference between him and Anders. Leknesund will be in. Berkemoes, so Van Evel, I think, crashed, so he's no good. Yeah, all of Total, Bruno Almirel, Jesus, it's going to be a huge war because when that many teams want to go on the break, Benji, when UAE are down a rider, are UAE going to control this to win?
I don't think so. I do not think so. I think UAE will take the stage on the same way they will always take on a stage like this, the way they take on the hill stages before as well. They will try and control break formation. They will slightly over-control it because they want a relatively small breakaway to be up the road. In doing so, they want to be able to later, when there's a small breakaway up the road, in the middle of the stage, decide whether they'll go for it or not. But I think they will make a mistake here a little bit, as in they will over-control at the start. But in this specific stage, that might lead to it going out of control a little bit. Because so many people will try to go in the break on a stage like this, in my opinion, that it won't just be a 5-rider breakaway and all happy days. So if they over-control and try to limit it to 5, teams will keep on jumping. Visma will keep on jumping. Oh, I just expect chaos for the first hour, and I think because UAE over-controls a little bit, it might lead out of control. And that's where a GC rider could start to benefit once the control is lacking.
You're not getting the Murder Britannia situation where 4 guys go, it gets blocked up, happy days. I just don't see that happening. Too many teams need this. I mean, there's so few break opportunities. I mean, the high mountains, these teams know they don't have a chance. The sprints, you don't have a chance against Merlier and Milan.
Yeah.
This stage 15, these are your chances if you're a breakaway hunter, and they're going to be so motivated. And like EF are literally going to throw like the whole team into this, and so will others like Astana and Israel Premier Tech. So I think I'm going to stick with Schmidt though. I like Schmidt. I think Schmidt's climbing well. Yeah. He got dropped by Woods on the Ancares. That was too hard last year in the Vuelta, but he circled this. Him and Plapp will be in, and Jaco, they are good in breaks, and so I like Schmidt.
I think that's a great pick, and I'm going to I think Vokalin should try and go in the breakaway. I think that would be a fun attempt. I think Gregoire should try and go in the breakaway. Those kind of riders. I'm feeling a Lipovitz attempt at some point in this race.
Lipovitz is going to try, 100%.
I'm checking for a second what the race situation is for this specific rider.
Who controls Lipovitz?
Ooh, I think UAE. I think the answer is UAE, because they want an easy breakaway. So they will try and control riders like a Lipovitz trying, etc. The moment that a Lipovitz move can work is once it starts getting out of control.
Who controls Matthias Skjelmoser?
That's a better question, because that man is on 10th place. I reckon he's allowed in the breakaway. Low-key.
He should go on the break.
I think so too. I expect Ben Healy to go in the breakaway and win the stage. He's 11th in GC right now.
Enric Mas on 435, Gol on 449, and Rodriguez on 450. This is the thing, like, if these were the GC... Say these guys had these time gaps, but we were in week 3, and you remove, let's say, and they're from 10th to 6th. Then they control each other because the GC positions are more set.
Yeah.
But because Carlos Rodriguez is in 15th, even though he's 2 seconds behind Gol, Decathlon in the first week won't immediately look to, I don't think, control Carlos Rodriguez. Yeah. So I think, why wouldn't Felix Gol try again the break? He's got to take time back.
Yep. I've been saying O'Connor a lot for the stage back in the day, though.
It is an O'Connor style stage.
It's an O'Connor stage, but his level has been disappointing in this race so far. So I think Healy drops him.
Yeah, Healy, they shouldn't let him the break because he'll win.
Well, UAE doesn't care who wins from the breakaway.
Well, that's not exactly true, but yeah.
Well, from the breakaway. Once the breakaway is formed, they don't care who wins from that breakaway.
They have a blacklist.
Oh, yeah, fair. The blacklist on the fridge of UAE. The entire team of Ismail Isabak. About that, by the way, we had Bidongate a few days ago. We had the fact that Wout van Aert and Jorgensen moved up on the right of Pogacar over the top of Muur de Bretagne in the feed zone. And Pogacar wanted a beat on, didn't necessarily grab towards anything. Jorgensen came under him, took a beat on, tried to take a beat on. Pogacar pushes him a bit. As a consequence, Jorgensen misses his beat on. Pogacar pushed him because his feeder, his dude Soigneur at the side of the road, was 10, 15 meters further because he wanted his beat on. He then takes his beat on from his team car, from his team guy at the side of the road. Anyway, lots of drama about it. Today we had the Nobel Peace Prize has been awarded.
It's so funny.
The Nobel Peace Prize. We had Marc Soler in the middle squandering. He's like, my musette.
Soler was about to go crazy.
My musette, it's right there. Help me. I can't get there.
No,
because there was a Visma rider on his ride.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Visma rider, if you really want to trigger UAE right now, just keep on riding there. Make sure Marc Soler can't get his musette. But Nobel Peace Prize, my friend, was awarded because the Visma rider goes to the UAE Soigneur, takes the musette, and he gives it to Soler. That was love at first sight.
Soler was convinced Affini was going to flick him. He was convinced he was going to flick him. And he gave him the musette. He's like, oh. Anyway, it's funny.
Anyway.
Tomorrow should be a good stage. Hope you enjoyed the recap today. I found it actually very interesting stage today. Just the whole dynamics of it I thought was very entertaining or much more exciting than expected.
Crazy GC prediction for tomorrow. What happens? A GC rider. Does any GC rider take down from a breakaway?
I think Oscar Only is on the podium in GC after this stage.
Ooh, I like that. I think Lipovic enters the top 5.
Yeah, it's one of those two I'm looking at around the 7th, 8th zone. They both actually have good legs. The reason they're on a gap is because of TT or positioning.
Van der Poel will be gone.
Why doesn't Roglic just go, fuck it, let's go all in here? Yeah, it should be entertaining. Anyway, thanks for listening as always, and we'll see you with the recap of stage 10 on Bastille Day. So all the French guys will be in the breakaway as well tomorrow. Ciao, ciao, ciao.